Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Speaking from the Heart and How to Land Your First TED Talk with Getrude Matshe. This is a webinar where I am sharing with you all the things that you can do to become a TED speaker, to build your brand, build your credibility as a thought leader. And yesterday we had a very, very interesting day. We talked about a number of things that you need to do before you start pitching yourself to TED events. So I'll start the day with summarizing some of those things. In case you missed anything, I will be sharing these notes today on LinkedIn, but you have to find your ideal audience for your TED Talk. That's number one. Who are you speaking to? Who is your ideal avatar? And this applies to any speech, any presentation that you ever put together. There is a 99% rule in everything you will do if you are speaking, if you are selling anything. And the rule is 33% of people will love you. They will adore you. They will kiss the ground you walk on. They will love all of the content that you put out. 33% of people just don't give a damn. They're not interested. It's not a passion of theirs. So there are going to be people who are totally indifferent to your ideas as a thought leader. And then 33% of people will hate you. So be prepared for the haters. I have to say, I wasn't very prepared for that. But when I started putting myself out in the public domain, and seeing some of the comments that people leave on your videos, there's going to be people who just don't like you. And that's okay. Number two, crafting a catchy TED Talk title and preparing for the application process is also something you have to think in mind. Think of your title as a book title, something that draws people in, that makes people curious. When you are creating a title, you have to remember that the title is a noun. The subtitle are the verbs that describe the noun. So I could use my title as the noun Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an African philosophy. And the subtitle of my speech could be, I am because you are. And that's the literal translation of the title. So think of the title of your speech as if you are writing a book, and make it interesting, make it captivating. The other thing we talked about yesterday was building your digital footprint and visibility through branding. And of course, doing a TED Talk is going to put you out there, give you global visibility. And this is the beautiful thing about doing a TED Talk. You're not just speaking locally to the people around you. You are speaking to the world once you get on the TED platform. So remember that. Even if you're invited to a very, very small TEDx event, grab the opportunity. It actually doesn't matter. What you are trying to get is get yourself on that stage, get the brand name behind you as a speaker. We also covered overcoming fear and being in the public domain. Overcoming fear is a big thing for most people. And I will be sharing with you a little bit later tips and ideas of how to build your self-confidence and get up on stage. That's going to come later on in this webinar series. When it comes to your branding, building a brand is not just one thing. I want you to talk to family, to friends, and find out what are the 3 words that best describe you. I told you yesterday that I got my branding words from one of my clients, an amazing lady who gave me a beautiful testimonial. And she said Gertrude is a vibrant bundle of African energy. So I grabbed the words vibrant, African, and energy. The vibrant part of my brand is the colors that I wear. The African part of my brand is that I always go on stage with something African. I want people to know where I'm from. So again, you can see I'm wearing my Africa earrings. I have my African beads, my African colors. That's really important for me. And the vibrancy part of my brand is the way that I present. It's the energy that I put into all of my talks and presentations. So you're now thinking like a thought leader. You are no longer you. You are now building a brand around one specific thought. What is that going to be? What are you going to be known for? My thought leadership is around the African philosophy of Ubuntu. And I was just very lucky that when I started writing my books about this philosophy a good 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot of literature written about the philosophy. A lot of people thought Ubuntu was the Linux operating system. They didn't realize that Linux based their operating system on this African philosophy. So I had moved to New Zealand and I would talk about Ubuntu, but I could tell that not many people knew what Ubuntu was, what the real meaning, the root meaning of the word was. So if you're someone indigenous, there might be something in your culture, in your language that you can bring to the mainstream. Try and bring that to the mainstream as well. The other thing that is fascinating about the Ubuntu philosophy is that it has opened up doors for me, doors not only to speak as a keynote speaker, but I'm now in a position to lecture in different universities all over the world around this philosophy. So it can be a game changer if you pick something that is very unique and very unusual as well. I talked yesterday a little bit about my journey in Zimbabwe, my work as a philanthropist, supporting orphaned children after the AIDS pandemic, and I shared one of my TED Talks. Unfortunately, today I can't do that. I got a warning from YouTube because I played that video. They've actually taken it off YouTube. So today I will share the video and then do an analysis of the video in tomorrow's session. So you need to watch it first, and then I will do a summary like what I did yesterday of the things that I did right and the things that I did wrong. Ruth, it's great to see you there. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be bringing you on stage in a few minutes when I need a break to drink water so we can have a little summary of what I am sharing today. I shared with you that when you are a TED speaker, use personal stories or use stories to illustrate what it is that you want to share. Stories are one of the most powerful way of educating, communicating any message. So show, don't tell. Wrap your ideas around stories because people remember stories. As human beings, we're actually wired to remember stories. Some of the public speaking techniques that I shared with you yesterday was the use of humor, the ability to communicate and connect with your heart, the fact that you have to make people feel something when you are speaking. You have to either make them laugh, you have to make them cry, you have to evoke some kind of an emotion for them to remember your speech, for them to then share your speech as well, because the whole idea of getting on TED is that people will share that presentation and it goes viral. So that's basically what I covered yesterday in a nutshell. And all of the content that you are getting through this webinar is part of a book that I am writing. that you can get access to later on. And the book is called Speaking from the Heart and How to Land Your First TED Talk. If anybody is interested in having a one-on-one session with me, I will put my booking link in the description of this video. I know quite a few people missed it yesterday. So we're now going to keep going with the content that I've prepared for you and the application process. So we stopped at the point where I was talking about renaming all of your photographs when you share them with anyone. If you're invited to be a keynote speaker at an event, they ask for your bio, they ask for a headshot. Make sure that the photographs that you give them have been renamed with your name. That way you will show up in the Google search engines. When people are looking for you, all of your pictures will show up. And I did a very good demonstration of that yesterday. So have a collection of photos and upload them to a Google Drive. And when you submit your application, when they ask for photographs, share that Google Drive, and then they can pick the picture that they want that might be in theme with the conference. They'll also ask you to share videos of you speaking. So if you have done other presentations and talks, make it a point right now that you are collecting all of the content of speeches that you have done before. People want to see you speaking. They want to see you embodying the area that you call yourself an expert at. So if you are a speaker who talks about resilience, for example, you need to have 5, 6, 10 presentations that you've done already around that subject matter to brand yourself as an authority on that particular subject. They normally ask for a brief bio. Give a bio that isn't too long. I have several bios. One is about 150 words. The other one is 250. The longest is 450 words. So synthesize all the things that you've done, what you stand for, in a very short bio that you share with the TED organizers as well. They will ask for your proposed idea. So what is the idea that you are proposing to share on the TED platform? Always remember that the TED tagline is ideas worth spreading. So what idea do you have that you will share through a TED Talk that is worth spreading? What is your proposed idea is one of the questions they'll ask in the application process. They'll also ask, why does this idea matter to you? And why are you passionate about it? So for me personally, I am passionate about the Ubuntu philosophy. It is a way of life that can really change the world. It is a way of life that can transform humanity and how we relate to each other, because it talks about human beings being one, that we are so interconnected, there is no separation between us. But in today's world, we have so many differences. Most of the world's problems are based on people picking on the differences between us. The wars that are happening in the world right now are mostly based on different religious views, for example. So I'm passionate about sharing the Ubuntu philosophy for that reason. And I think it's an idea that really matters, that can transform the world. So what is your idea? Why does it matter to you specifically? Why are you passionate about it? So again, you can illustrate your passion with a vignette of short little stories that illustrate that. So how is this idea new? Of course, TED is looking for new and fresh ideas, but your idea doesn't necessarily have to be new. It could be an idea that other people have already talked about. It could be an idea about creativity, resilience, perseverance, the things that make us human. My idea is not new. It's a very, very ancient African philosophy that has existed for thousands of years. The only new thing about the idea that I brought to the TED platform is that I have brought it to mainstream thinking. I've taken it out of an African context and thrown it to be a global idea that can be utilized or implemented anywhere in the world. So, my idea isn't new, it's a very old idea, but Africa being the cradle of humanity and its philosophies can serve us as human beings. And that's what I put in my TED application. So again, if any of you want to get access to my TED Talk application, so you can see the kind of questions that come up on the forms that you fill out, and you want to use this as a guideline, by all means, get hold of me on LinkedIn, Facebook, just ask me for resources, and also remember to schedule your free 1 hour consultation with me to discuss your idea as well. So, the proposed title, I think I already covered that. They want to know the title. And don't be too fixed on the title, because normally what happens with the TED organizers is that they will support you. They will also help to coach and mentor you sometimes. They have people who will support the speakers, refine their ideas, especially when they want those ideas to be in line with the theme that they have for their particular conference. So every conference has got a specific theme, and the TED organizers will also support you in getting very, very clear what it is that you're going to do. You'll then have to outline your talk. Remember, I said that the art to any story, the art to any presentation is that it has to have a beginning, it has to have a middle, and it has to have an end. And in the beginning is your setup, your introduction to your concept or your idea. In the middle, you can use examples, you can illustrate the ups and downs of your life if you're telling a life story. And at the end is the practical way that people can take that idea and run with it and implement it. And I said yesterday that the end of your speech is what's called your call to action. What are the things that you want people to do, to take away, so that they can implement the idea? What is the length of your speech? We talked about this yesterday a little bit. Anywhere from 12 to 18 minutes maximum. The shorter your presentation, the more views it's going to get. The longer it is, and if you exceed the 18 minutes, it will not see the light of day. So prepare a video presentation that is short, that shares the idea, and get ready to send a 3-minute video presentation. So when I work with clients and coach them to speak on the TED platform, we work in developing the very first 3-minute pitch. Then we work on a 5-minute presentation, a 10-minute presentation, and a 15-minute presentation. And the reason why I do this is sometimes you might be invited to an event where they have a short time slot. You still want to take that opportunity to speak, regardless of whether you're doing a 5-minute presentation, 10 or 15. So when you are prepared to synthesize your presentation into a very short, brief speech, it just gives you an edge and an advantage as well. So what are the implications of your idea? Or put another way, what will or will not happen if people do not know about your idea? How will it impact the world? So this is now where you have to explain the importance of why you're sharing your idea, what would happen if people actually get what you're talking about and they implement it, and the impact it's going to have on the world. So if you are an entrepreneur, for example, and you're going on the TED platform to talk about your business, the things that you've done, if you are a scientist, you can talk about the impact of your research. That's what they're asking in that question. The other thing they ask for on the TED application is, how has the nominee impacted the world? This is now where they want to see the things that you have achieved in your life. So if you are an entrepreneur and you've run several businesses, list those businesses and what you did in each one. If you have been a volunteer for nonprofit work, anything philanthropic that you've done, write that down as well, because all of that is part of impacting the world. I even put that I am the mother of 3 beautiful children. I'm an African storyteller, a poet, an artist, a published author. I'm a scriptwriter. I'm an independent filmmaker. And I write for CNN. I report, which is something anyone can do. You can go and write for CNN. I also talk about the different platforms that I have blogged for in the past, like the Huffington Post. I have been an actress in several movies like Cry Freedom with Denzel Washington in New Zealand in 1987. I took part in movies in New Zealand like King Kong and Avatar with James Cameron and Peter Jackson. These are all parts of the ways that I have impacted the world in whatever way. If you have published books, this is another way you can show how your impact has gone out into the world. And if you have a following, you might have a movement that you started. This is where you would share all of that information. Another question that they ask on the TED application is, why are you the right person to speak on this topic? So this is now where you have to show that you are an authority on the subject matter that you are sharing. Now, when I started speaking about Ubuntu, I'm not a philosopher, but I know this philosophy so well because it's part of a way of life in Zimbabwe. I grew up with it, I grew up seeing it. My grandmother taught me about it, my parents, my community, and I became an authority because I have lived the experience. So, depending on what you are sharing, how have you lived? What is your lived experience that makes you an authority on your subject matter? That is very, very important. Um, hey, Ruth, thank you for letting me know. You said there is noise coming from the studio. I might just check what that is if you give me a second. Thank you for making me aware of that. I'm back. Ruth, can you still hear the sound? I think it might have been the fan that is on. Please just put in the chat if you can still hear the noise. Otherwise, I'm not sure what that noise could have been. Okay, so moving on, where was I? Can you still hear the noise? It's gone. Okay. So I did have a fan on. It's quite warm here in Melbourne. I was trying to cool myself down, but I'll have to do without the fan at the moment. Next question that is asked is, what do you want the audience's initial takeaway to be? Or how will your talk impact the audience? So this is now the takeaway that I talked about at the very end of your presentation. The TED organizers want to know what people will get from your particular presentation. They ask for a fun fact about you on some TED applications. My fun fact is that I'm an African woman with a misspelled German name. So some of you might notice that my name is Getrude Matshe, not Gertrude. So there's an R missing in my name. So that's one of my fun facts. They ask, what is your favorite TED Talk and why? I watched a TED Talk that really made an impression on me. It was short. I think it was about a 5-minute presentation by Derek Shivers, and it was called How to Start a Movement. And I literally took on all of the ideas in that little 5-minute TED Talk and created my own movement called the Her Story Circle. So please start going on TED every single day and watching presenters who are inspiring, presenters who are talking around your subject matter, see how they're delivering their speeches. I watch one TED Talk a day. So I've now got a library of fascinating TED Talks, and I see what they've done that has really worked well that I can implement in my presentations going forward as well. The next question they will ask is, what do you hope to learn out of the TEDx speaking experience? Or why is the TED Talk the right platform for you to share your idea? I answered and threw back to them their tagline. I said, TED is the right place for me because I do have an idea worth spreading. TED attracts out of the box thinkers who could connect with my message and help amplify it. I hope to learn how to work smart and not hard through the magic of my voice and the internet as a broadcasting platform. And also, Ubuntu stems from Africa's oral history. So it seems only natural that I share my idea that is so rooted in storytelling, speaking, and oration. That was my answer to that question. They then ask you to list your speaking experience. So remember what I said, all of the places where you have spoken, write all of that down. They ask for links to the video presentations as well. So these are some of the questions that are on most TED application platforms. I'm going to now bring my beautiful sister Ruth onto the stage. Good morning, Ruth. You might want to put a picture on StreamYard so people can see your beautiful face. I know you're in bed, you're in Zimbabwe, and just put a photograph so that you can see what's going on. Okay. So somebody said, I just got a message from my sister-in-law in Zimbabwe that connecting isn't fantastic on LinkedIn. So maybe you want to watch this video on YouTube, Tari, or you can watch it on Facebook. It's also going out on Facebook. So I'm broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So, Miss Ruth, good morning. I need you to come in so I can have a cup of tea. Put your photo so you can see who you are.
Will do. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, up and early, 5 o'clock this morning to get ready for this talk. But
Oh,
excited that we have quite a few people who were with us yesterday joining us again today.
that's wonderful. And I love it that people are connecting with the program from different places.
Yeah. And we had a very, very good response from yesterday. I had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people inboxing me, sharing their insights, things that they learned and took away from the presentation. So it's really good to get that feedback from people as well. So please keep giving me feedback so that I know that I am getting and hitting the mark, so to speak, with all of this content. What else do you have to share with us today, Ruth? You still there, Ruth? Okay, maybe Miss Ruth has gone. Something has disconnected there. Miss Ruth, are you still there, Ruth? Okay, something's gone wrong there. All right, so moving on. I just wanted to take a little bit of a break. Now, let's talk a little bit about things that you can do to not only prepare yourself to speak, but to become a better speaker. One of the things I want to do with this particular um, course is to help show you different things that you can do that will help you leverage of everything that you are sharing with people. Um, I want to cover a section right now on how to speak so people want to listen. Now, a lot of times we go out into the world with preconceived notions of how we put ourselves across, and we're not even sure that people are going to tune in and listen to what we are saying. So, effective speakers listen first. And by this, I mean you need to learn to pay attention when you are listening to somebody else's presentation and talk. I'm going to repeat that. Effective speakers listen first. So, are you listening to other people's presentations and really seeing what works, what doesn't, what's effective, and what's not effective? So, you have to be a listener first for you to be an effective speaker. Does that make sense? A lot of times, people don't listen effectively. They don't know how to take in information from other people. So you need to be a listener first before you can be a good speaker. So I won't emphasize this enough, the importance of going onto other people's presentations, listening to how they speak. It is a powerful, powerful way of communicating. The next thing you need to know is that the use of silence is very effective. So, silence sharpens listening. What do I mean by this? When you pause between your words, it sharpens the way people take in the information that you are using. A lot of times, when you are nervous, you tend to speak very, very fast and your words bump into each other. So, how can you speak to avoid your words running into each other and people not hearing what you're saying? So, you can see, even as I'm talking to you right now, I've got a lot of things I want to say, but I am taking time to pause after I say a certain phrase of words. So, silence sharpens listening. The use of silence is very, very effective. Now, be precise with your words. What do I mean by this? When you start writing your speech, the actual words that are in your speech have to be very, very specific. Make sure that you aren't using words that are difficult for people to understand. A lot of times, people who are technical or very professional tend to throw in very big words into their speeches that most people don't understand. But if you can write a speech that is written in a language or in words that are simple and easy to understand, it's easy for people to take in the information and remember everything that you're saying. The other thing you need to do is to prioritize your content over delivery. What do I mean by this? Remember, you are on a TED platform. You have an idea worth spreading. So the content of your speech, the things that you are saying, have to have value. What is the value that you are giving to people? So, for example, I am putting together this webinar series for you guys. I'm wanting you to learn how to speak effectively. And so I am prioritizing that I give you content that will be a game changer in your speaking careers. I want to make sure that by the time you get to the 31 days that I'm going to be sharing content with you on how to be a TED speaker, the content is of value. So it's not just about you and your idea and what you think about it. It's all about, are you giving value to your audience? Are you giving them enough value that they can take away and utilize the ideas that you are sharing? The next thing is all about varying your voice and, again, using the pause. So when you speak in a monotonous way, where you're just very, very level, you will put people to sleep. But when you speak and you speak a little bit louder, you speak a little bit lower, louder, lower, it keeps people awake. It helps people stay engaged with your presentation. So you actually need to pace yourself. You have to change up your pace when you're speaking. And the tone of your voice, the emphasis that you put on certain words also helps. And the pitch. So there's some people who have voices that have a pitch that is quite irritating and difficult for people to listen to. You need to listen to your own voice. So recording yourself speaking and listening back and taking in how you speak is one way of doing it. And then giving your presentation to other people to listen to and give you feedback. You need to get feedback from people. Start with family, start with friends. That is very, very important. Now, one of the things that people don't seem to realize is that speaking is like singing. When you are a musician and you sing, you speak from your chest as opposed to speaking from your throat. There's a very big difference when you are speaking from your chest. And I shared with you yesterday that my process is called speaking from the heart and how to land your first TED talk. It's when you drop into this heart space that the timbre of your voice really comes through. The resonance comes through the air that's in your chest. So using your chest to project your voice really makes your chest to sound more authoritative. Your voice sounds like you have more authority when you're speaking from the chest as opposed to speaking from the throat. And a lot of times when you're nervous, you're speaking from up here. So just remember to drop your voice into your chest and speak from the heart. So, one of the things that I would love for all of you to do now is to just type in the chat. Oh, good, Ruth, you've given us your beautiful picture. Any questions that you have? I see we've got a few people on Facebook. Kabinga, thank you so much for joining us again. I know you were with us yesterday. Let's now just go to a Q&A. Ruth, anything has come up for you so far?
I think that the whole all around an idea that will change lives, an idea that is worth sharing, because that then it means that what you have to share will change or impact somebody's life or communities, or bring a change in a mindset, in thinking, whatever it could be. So I think that that's very important, that you realize you're not just talking, you're not just presenting your story, but your story or your idea will change somebody's mindset, somebody's way of thinking, or even impact lives. So that for me is big.
It is a big game changer. It's really the nuts and cracks of the reason why you're getting on the TED platform in the first place. You're very right, Ruth. Are we getting any comments, any questions from Facebook?
No, just good morning, Gertrude, from a Facebook user. I can't see their name here. And then from Kabinga, whom you've already acknowledged.
Okay, that's great. So one of the things that is really important with speaking is that you need to keep people connected and keep people engaged. Why would they keep showing up day in, day out to listen to a presenter? I've had several TED Talks that I have watched over and over and over again. I have done this because I have a fascination, like I said, to see how other people are presenting. But I've also done it to zone in and improve the way that I speak. So let's talk a little bit about writing the actual speech, your setup, your middle, and the end. And I'm going to share with you what is called the arch of a story. And the arch of a story is the graph that is used to map out any presentation. And let's see if I can find it, the arch of a story. How to plan a presentation or a talk. Now, when you are writing a speech, you need to remember that your beginning is probably the most important part of any speech you will ever give. It's important for a number of reasons. Number one, the very beginning, the very first 30 seconds of any speech, you need to suck people into the presentation. They say that if you can't capture people in the first 30 seconds, you've lost them. So what is it that you're going to do that is different? In my very first speech, the one that you saw yesterday, I started speaking from the audience. The theater was dark. And instead of going to wait on the sides of the stage and be called to come on stage, I was sitting in the audience. People heard me speaking from the back of the room. I came down the stairs and then I came on stage. So I used the element of surprise to make people listen, to captivate them right from the beginning. In my second speech, I used what are called props. So you can take on stage anything that can help you illustrate, demonstrate, show what you're talking about. And the props that I used were broomsticks. I actually went on stage with 2 broomsticks. I had started my story sharing the fact that during the AIDS pandemic, people would go into our communities, into our villages, talking about how the AIDS virus was spreading and how to prevent the spread of AIDS. And in a lot of these communities, people who were facilitating in these workshops and giving these presentations were not people of African descent. They would be communicating in English. And to demonstrate how to use a condom, they would put the condom on a broomstick and say, "This is how you use a condom." But it was taken so literally that most people ended up putting condoms on a broomstick and having them behind the door to prevent the spread of AIDS. This is actually how I got involved as an activist to help stop the spread of AIDS. So I demonstrated with a broomstick, and it was quirky, it was funny. I had 2 broomsticks in front of me as I was speaking, and at some point I picked it up. And again, it made people laugh. So don't be afraid to use props when you are starting off your presentation. So that is the beginning, first 5 minutes of your presentation. You are introducing the concept, the idea that is worth spreading, that you feel you can bring value to people. At the end of 5 minutes is a transition. It's called a plot point. And that transition is what is now going to take people from the beginning of your speech to the middle. It has to be another story. It has to be something dramatic that transitions from the introduction to the middle part of your speech. So the way that I do this very effectively, especially when I'm writing books, when I'm writing speeches, I find something very, very pivotal. It could be a story that took me from Zimbabwe to New Zealand. And I'll illustrate this because it's a really good example of how, when I was trying to leave Zimbabwe, I was stopped because of a misprint on my daughter's visa in transit in Johannesburg, and I could not proceed to go to the United States. And there's a whole thing that happened in my ending up in New Zealand as opposed to the United States because of that misprint on my daughter's visa. It actually saved my life. If I had gone to the United States, it was just before 9/11, I might not be speaking to you because the building where I was speaking in the Trade Center went down with the Twin Towers. So I have a very pivotal story that shows the trajectory of my life, of how I transitioned from moving from Zimbabwe, trying to go to the United States, and ending up in New Zealand. So it's a real twist, a plot twist, something interesting that transitions people from the introduction of the story to now the main part of what you're wanting to teach. So the middle part of your speech is really where you deliver the most value and the most content. And what is that going to be? So you need to make sure that you have at least 5 bullet points that you will speak around. For me, like I said yesterday, it is 5 short little stories that I will share in the middle of my speech that illustrate my idea worth spreading. So, for example, with the Ubuntu philosophy, Ubuntu has got 5 basic principles. I call them my 4 C's and an E. The E stands for empathy. So I talk around empathy, and I actually demonstrate empathy by how I make people feel about my presentation and my story. The next thing is connection, collaboration, compassion, and community. So to understand the Ubuntu philosophy, those are the 5 basic principles about the philosophy. Ubuntu is all about empathy, how to empathize with another human being and put yourself in their shoes. Ubuntu is all about connection, that we are so interconnected, there is no separation between us. Ubuntu is about compassion, being aware of the people around you and making a difference in whatever way you can. Ubuntu is about community. We are communal people. In Africa, it's all about community. It's all about the greater whole. It's not about individualism. We are a very communal people. So this is what I did with my speech in the very middle. Those are the things that I was demonstrating. At the end of the middle section of your speech, you need another plot point that transitions people from the facts that you've shared to the resolution, the solution, the takeaway, the call to action. So again, you can illustrate that with another short little story that transitions you from that point to the end of the speech. Now, at the end of your presentation is where you summarize everything you've shared in the beginning. And the best ways to summarize sometimes is to use an acronym to make people remember. So if you were doing a presentation about fear, FEAR, you could say that F is be fierce, forceful. E is something, give meaning to each of those words. So Ruth, I'm going to get you to think here with me. Let's think of an acronym for how to overcome fear. FEAR. So I've said forceful. What could the E stand for?
Energetic.
Be energetic, yes, to overcome fear. The A could be adventurous. Live life as if it's an adventure. Don't be scared. And the R could be
The R could be resilient.
resilient. Yes.
Yes. In the face of whatever, just stand and be resilient.
In the face of adversity. Correct.
Yes.
So I summarized one of my presentations by saying that to install the Ubuntu operating system is very, very simple. Thank you, Kabinga. She also said resilience. To install the Ubuntu operating system is very, very simple. Put your family first, your community next. If you have something to spare, do something somewhere else in the world. So, 3 things that people can do to implement the Ubuntu operating system. And the plot point at the end of my speech is that I went back to using the analogy of Ubuntu's operating system. So, right now, my second TED talk is called Ubuntu 2.0 Humanity's Operating System. I went back to the Linux operating system and illustrated it that way. Thank you so much, Tari. Tari also has given us the word fear. An acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. Awesome. Thanks so much, Tari. So always make sure that the end of your speech has got your call to action. 3 things that people can do, 4 steps that people can follow. The call to action is really important because that is the take home. That is what people will take away and implement when they get home and spread your idea that is worth spreading. So I will always go back to the guidelines from TED, ideas worth spreading. So tomorrow, I'm going to focus on how to become a confident speaker and how to overcome fear, the fear of public speaking. But before I do that, I also want you to watch my second TED Talk because I can't play it today. Otherwise, I will be thrown off YouTube. Although